Greetings. I'm Dr. Ken Hildebrandt. We're here with 2010 California governor candidate Laura Wells, who was actually arrested for simply trying to sit in and watch a debate that she should have been a part of. And let's not forget that we've had two presidents in recent history, Reagan and Bush II, who were governors before they ended up being president of the United States. So how democracy unfolds in the state of California could arguably end up having an impact on our world and certainly our nation. So tell us, Laura, what happened on October 12th, 2010?
Well, October 12th, there was a gubernatorial race and it was a debate in San Rafael, which is just north of San Francisco. And so the only two candidates out of the 6 candidates that were invited to the debate were the Democrats and Republicans, which I've started to call the Titanics because they're big, they seem unsinkable, but boy, we better hope for the rest of us that they are sinkable, and I know they are. So as a Green Party candidate, I, of course, was not to be included in the debate, but we were there outside. And if you're an individual in the U.S., what passes for free speech is a barricaded zone. That's where you can be. Corporations can give all the money they want to elections, but they're corporate persons. Real persons don't have the same wherewithal. So I was there, and some reporters were talking to me, and somebody came up and said, you should be in the room at least, and I have an extra ticket. As a matter of fact, I have 2 extra tickets. You and your friend can go in. So the 2 of us had our tickets. The guard passed us through. We were standing on the staircase, the stairway outside the building where the debate was to be held, when suddenly security guards came up and surrounded me, not my friend. They left her completely alone and said, "You don't belong here. That's not your ticket. You're not supposed to be here." And I just thought, you know what? I am supposed to be here. They said, you aren't supposed to be here. You aren't supposed to be here. That was just dead wrong. And so I stayed, and they ended up doing a citizen's arrest of me, took me to the San Rafael police, put me in metal handcuffs in the back of a squad car, the whole thing about dipping the head and everything to get this dangerous person outside of being in the audience of the debate. So that's what happened. Then they wrote up the citation, which is perfect. Trespassing at a private party. Yes, the party on the Titanic. And set, coincidentally, the court date for November 2nd, Election Day. So that was the story.
Unbelievable. Tell us a couple things or a few things that weren't heard because you weren't in there. I'd like to start off tying 2 subjects together because they kind of are intertwined, and that's cannabis and hemp. Hemp seed oil, or hemp, was actually described in a February 1938 issue of Popular Mechanics as a $1 billion crop. They usually didn't talk billions back in those days. And it's also recently been stated that it could supply nearly all of our energy needs, and yet it's illegal. And then we look at cannabis, which accounts for some 800,000 arrests every year in the United States, which coincidentally is the same or near the same number of kids who go missing. So obviously if our resources are being tied up in one area, then those kids aren't being found. And our priorities are just totally messed up. But anyway, what is your take on both cannabis and hemp?
Well, there was a proposition on the ballot in California in November, and so it's making headway, and sooner or later it was about the legalization of marijuana. And so sooner or later it'll get legalized. Now, what would be the benefit to that? And I had a BFO, blinding flash of the obvious, a few years back where I realized that the powers that be had to come down that strong on marijuana because you could grow it in your backyard. I mean, it could be entirely outside the consumer capitalists kind of thing. And industrial hemp would be it's a source of energy. It has, basically it grows like a weed. And it could take some of the pressure off our forests. You can make so many things out of industrialized hemp, industrial hemp. It's ridiculous. And, a sign of the priorities, as you were saying, that it's not legal. But I think its day is coming.
Well, I think if Green Party candidates get in there, hopefully it'll happen that much sooner. Because, I mean, even with this last proposition in California, how many people said, look, you know, we're having X amount of kids who are going missing who we're not finding because we're going after this other, you know, they just don't seem to make it real enough and give it that punch, you know, that's the way I see it anyway. Moving right along, what about the other big issue that you brought up was that North Dakota has its own bank, its own state bank, and they're the only state who's not in the red right now. Can you tell us more about that whole issue?
Right. They started it in 1919 when the farmers got mad in North Dakota. They got mad at the outside bankers. The farmers were doing all the work, and the outside bankers were making all the money, which is just what's happening right now. And so now, years and years later, North Dakota has a budget surplus, and every other state has a budget deficit. So what would happen? And one of the good things about one of the Green Party principles is that the global work and the personal work together. And people are individually taking their money out of those huge banks and putting them into credit unions and private banks. And that, if we had a state bank in California, would be what the state bank would partner with. The local banks, the credit unions, you know, the small, when I said private banks, I mean the local private banks, and make better loans with lower interest to homeowners as well as small business owners as well as students. And what interest was charged would come back, fold back into investing in California, not Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, and all of that. We would be being the 8th largest economy in the world, California, bigger than most other countries. We would have like the equivalent of a central bank. That's what you have. You take control of your own money supply.
Wow, that's something, the 8th largest economy in the world. I don't think that very many people know that either. You know, that's a very important point. As Chomsky has brought out, that we live entangled in webs of endless deceit in a highly indoctrinated society where elementary truths are easily buried. I hope that at the height of the information age, we can start bringing the truths about our elections out to the people, to enough people, where we bypass the media and start voting for more reasonable candidates. Thank you, Laura, for being here with us, and good luck in the future for all of us.